A lot of people have been looking at flight data from the night of the Las Vegas shooting. What I've done here is I've recorded flight data from that night. And you'll notice here it says Monday, October 2nd, 4:43 a.m. That's because this is in UTC time. So I've translated that into local time on October 1st. So take a look at some of this data that we're going to look at that shows flight tracking from the night of that shooting. We're going to notice a number of things in this data that just seems weird. There's a number of anomalies that we should pay attention to because I think they give a bigger picture of what may have happened. Here we see one helicopter leaving Maverick helicopters, a second helicopter getting ready to leave, and you can see their call signs, their tail numbers. That third one turned its transponder on a little bit late. So those three helicopters depart at about 9:40 p.m. from Maverick helicopters, which is right here. And you'll notice that they're going to come back around from the north. And they're going to stop directly behind the Mandalay Bay. So this first one hovers right there, right over Mandalay Bay, right over the event center, kind of oval-shaped roof. Here comes the third and the fourth. Notice that first helicopter, what happened is it turned off its transponder. These other two are about to do the same, and they turn off their transponders as well. And they remain there, no transponder signals come back on for the duration of the shooting. So they turned off their transponders at about 9:52, and no more transponders will appear in that area. But what's interesting is that even though we have no radar data showing flights in that area, video evidence clearly shows flights being in that area during the shooting. I want you to notice as we watch this clip, the flashes coming from behind and in between Mandalay Bay and Delano Towers. There's no aircraft in the air at this time according to flight data, but we see lights flashing in there, which have to come from aircraft because there's no other buildings tall enough for them to be coming from this perspective. The flashes are inconsistent. They're not normal, consistent flashes like you would see from beacons or anti-collision lights. So it's possible these flashes are coming from a muzzle. Additionally, you can see one flash that comes from the suite that looks like it's possibly Paddock's room in that same area, which I'll show in a freeze frame here in just a second. And the flashes coming from the sky look exactly the same as that flash, which we see here from Paddock's room. So we know for a fact that there were aircraft in the air, and it's possible from these flashes that there was shooting coming from those aircraft. Now I want to get back into some radar data to further examine anomalies seen on that night. So we have this one helicopter returning to the area, but we don't know what helicopter that is, and then it heads back up north. It kind of came out of nowhere, no call sign. And then we see that again, a separate helicopter, different timestamp again, heading up north, no call sign at all. And then just for a little while in this clip, there's no real action going on. Note again that there's no aircraft hovering behind Mandalay Bay. This is still 5 minutes before the shooting, but still no aircraft showing up on radar there. So there should theoretically be no aircraft there, but of course that's not what we saw in the video. Two more no call sign helicopters, presumably the two we saw head up north, come back and land over there by Maverick helicopters again. And here we are, 10:05, when the actual shooting started. The shooting started right about 10:05 on the dot. I've been able to match that up with other videos as well as data from fitness trackers and things of the like to show that the shooting really did start right about then. Still, no helicopters, no aircraft behind the Mandalay Bay. 10:09 now. About to be 10:10 and no aircraft behind the Mandalay Bay. This is during when that clip that I showed earlier, 10:10, 10:11, that we can see those aircraft back there behind the Mandalay Bay. Now we're going to see something interesting. A group of 8 helicopters take off from Maverick helicopters. I've written down and I've cross-referenced the call signs of all 8 of these aircraft. That's the third one. That's the fourth one. A fifth one pops up. No call sign. 6 and 7 and 8 or there's the 8th right there. So what we see is all 3 call signs from the original 3 helicopters that were behind Mandalay Bay that never returned show up there. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking about the helicopters that landed near Maverick helicopters, but they did not actually land at the Maverick helicopters location where these aircraft took off. They landed over here. So how did they get back over there? And they magically appear back on radar just after the shooting stopped at 10:16. Another interesting thing that I noticed was that the last helicopter in the original group of 3, call sign N848MH, actually turns its transponder on, pops up right there. It just popped up, and I'll show that to you frame by frame here. But it's like it never actually took off from Maverick helicopters, but perhaps left the shooting scene and joined that group formation and turned its transponder on right when it got into that group formation. One more very interesting thing that we see here, we're going to see pretty soon what looks to be an airline coming from the right. And it's going to be masked as a Southwest Airlines flight. It's going to enter frame here in just a second. It's going to be coming at the airport from a little bit of an angle, and it is bearing the call sign of a Southwest Airlines flight. The problem is, as we'll watch here in just a second, the maneuvers that it pulls are impossible. So there it is. It just entered frame. It's coming in towards the airport, and we'll see the call sign here when my mouse hovers in just a second. Right there. It's a Southwest Airlines flight. Look at the turn that it made, and then watch this. It's just going to stop and hover. So it just stops and hovers there, and then it's going to turn off its transponder here in just a second. There it goes. So some helicopter purposefully masked its transponder as a Southwest Airlines flight, hovered over the Mandalay Bay, and then turned off its transponder. Now, this is after the official shooting timeline, but that's very odd. Also, what we see here is these helicopters that took off to the north coming back around. It looks like only 5 of them land when you actually look at the landing point, but it looks like actually what happens is a few of them turn their transponders off just before they land. And then that helicopter that just came in the middle and is now over Mandalay Bay is a Las Vegas Metro Police Department helicopter that just missed all the action. But that helicopter isn't without controversy as well. We're going to see that it hovers over the Mandalay Bay for a while here. It goes back and forth a little bit, presumably looking for shooters, responding to the police scanner audio, and just trying to generally help out the situation. But eventually, that helicopter is going to land right next door to Maverick helicopters. It's actually going to land in the shared parking lot, which is shared with the Harley-Davidson dealership there in Las Vegas. And there's actually video of it there, so we can confirm that it was there outside of the flight radar, which really is very, very reliable, so we don't really need to. But the video that helps us confirm it is very interesting because it shows people loading machine guns, light machine guns like M240 or M249 saws, out of trucks, getting ready to get into this helicopter. And it stops there for a couple of minutes, and then it heads back out. Now, surely the Las Vegas Metro Police Department didn't think that they would be able to shoot to the ground or to a hotel tower with a machine gun in the middle of Las Vegas. So that got me thinking, what were they thinking that they could do with those machine guns? And the only logical explanation that I could come up with is they were thinking they might have to engage air to air. So perhaps they knew about these helicopters and the weird things that were going on via the flight data, the flight radar. So here that helicopter, that police helicopter, is heading down. It's going to take a look back at Mandalay Bay, and then it's going to kind of loop around and head down and land here right around 10:50. So we'll watch it do that here for a second. And then I'm going to show you guys the clip that I referenced just before. So here it goes, and it's going to go ahead and land right there, right by Maverick helicopters, about where those other helicopters took off, but it's actually just next door in a shared parking lot. So while that helicopter is there on radar, we can see this video was taken, and I verified the timestamp of this video, both with its author and with the post time on Instagram. And we see these two guys loading up weapons to get into that helicopter. The guy on the right looks like he possibly has an advanced weapon system, such as a machine gun. I can't verify that there's a scope mounted on it. It looks like it has a tripod, much like many belt feds come with. The other gun appears to be a sniper rifle. It has a scope mounted on top, so it's possible the police were thinking of positioning these guys to help take out a shooter, and maybe they were thinking if they took fire from the air, at least they would be able to shoot back. But they definitely land here and pick up some weapons to possibly shoot to the ground or towards another aircraft. So we're back to the time when the police helicopter landed here on the flight data. And what we're going to notice is we're not going to see that police helicopter's transponder turn on again until after it's in the air. So it's dark the whole time that it's landed in the parking lot. And it turns on its transponder again at 11:06 after it's in the air above Mandalay Bay, presumably looking for assailants. But again, what could they shoot at? They definitely can't shoot from a helicopter into a hotel or ground in Las Vegas. So the fact that they land to load up guns is kind of an interesting scenario. It doesn't appear in the data that they stop over any buildings or tactical positions immediately following them picking up these weapons. So it's kind of an interesting scenario. It's definitely something to look into and something to question. But it's not a smoking gun. It's not to say the police shot to the ground, but perhaps they were worried about other aircraft. So the transponder pops back up here at about 11:05. It's back over Mandalay Bay, and it's presumably looking around. That was where the event happened. There hasn't been any shooting for almost an hour. And knowing that the shooting was coming from that area, it wouldn't be a tactical position to place a sniper. And it hovers, and it hovers, and it hovers. But eventually here, in a few minutes, it's going to make its way north over to the New York area, as well as the Aria. So just north of the Mandalay Bay is the Luxor. We can see it's that black square building just north of Mandalay Bay, which he's right by right now. And then he's over by New York. And interestingly, and the Aria now. And interestingly enough, this is the exact time that eyewitnesses report there being shooting in these casinos and lobbies. So perhaps this police helicopter was responding to those reports. But again, what could he shoot at from a helicopter? It doesn't make sense, and he hasn't placed a sniper. So he's going to hover around a little bit more. Eventually, he's going to land back over where he landed before by Maverick helicopters. And then a minute to 2 minutes later, he's going to head north on another assignment. Why did he land again? He spent a whole lot more time in that parking lot, enough time to get fuel if that's what he needed when they were loading up before. So he's going to go back down and land there after, of course, going up here and visiting the Tropicana around again when more shots were reported at that casino. And then he's going to head down and land. He's going to land just for a couple of minutes, and we'll watch that here. Right near where he landed before, kind of loops around. Maybe he had to just take a different angle. And he lands at about 11:31, 11:32. He's going to spend a minute or two there, and then he's going to head north to the North Las Vegas Summerlin area, presumably on another assignment, although I don't know what other assignment could be possible on a night like this. So there he is again, popped up like right before 11:35. So he spent about 2 minutes there, presumably offloading personnel. I don't know why else he would land, but he makes a brief stop over Tropicana and then heads north. I zoomed out here so you can see he heads north. He ends up over near the Summerlin area of Las Vegas. So we saw some pretty interesting things here, some things that warrant an explanation from the people that were in these helicopters. Why haven't the police asked these questions? Why are we still flying blind? And why doesn't the media care about evidence like this?